The call came at 2:37 in the morning. I remembered the exact time because I had been lying awake, unable to sleep, knowing that Emily could go into labor any moment. My phone lit up the darkness of my bedroom, and my heart jumped when I saw my son Michael's name on the screen. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling with excitement, "it is time. We are heading to St. Catherine's Hospital right now." I was already out of bed, pulling on my clothes. "I will meet you there, sweetheart. I am leaving right now." There was a pause, a strange, uncomfortable silence that should not have been there. "Mom, listen. Maybe wait a little bit. Let us get settled first. Emily is in a lot of pain and she is really anxious. Michael, I am your mother. I want to be there for both of you. I will stay out of the way, I promise. I know. Just maybe give us an hour or two. We'll call you when things calm down." But I was already grabbing my keys, my purse, my coat. This was my first grandchild. I'd been waiting 9 months for this moment. There was no force on earth that could have kept me away from that hospital. "Okay," I lied. "Call me if anything changes." I hung up and drove through the empty streets of our suburban town, my mind racing with excitement and just the slightest thread of worry about that hesitation in Michael's voice. But I pushed it away. He was just being protective of his wife. That was natural. That was good. St. Catherine's Hospital rose up against the night sky, its windows glowing with warm light. I parked in the emergency lot and rushed inside, following the signs to the maternity ward on the 3rd floor. The nurse at the desk looked up as I approached, slightly out of breath. "I am here for Emily Harrison," I said. "She just came in. I am the grandmother." The nurse checked her computer, then smiled. "Room 312. Let me just call up there first to make sure they are ready for visitors." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly for a moment, then her expression changed. She glanced at me, then away. "Ma'am, they are asking if you could wait in the waiting room for now. The patient is requesting immediate family only during the delivery." "I am immediate family," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "That is my son and his wife." The nurse looked uncomfortable. "I understand, ma'am. But the patient has the right to decide who is in the room during delivery." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Fine, I will wait. But please tell my son I am here." I walked to the waiting room, a pale green space with uncomfortable plastic chairs and months-old magazines scattered across cheap tables. I was the only one there. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and texted Michael. "I am here, in the waiting room. Let me know when I can come see you both." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a message came through. "Mom, Emily is really struggling. The contractions are intense. Can you please wait at home? We'll call you as soon as the baby is born." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. "I am already at the hospital," I texted back. "I will stay in the waiting room. I promise I will not disturb you both. Just want to be here." No response. I waited, watching those 3 dots appear and disappear, appear and disappear, for nearly 5 minutes. Then my phone rang. "Michael." "Mom," he said, and his voice had changed. It was colder, more distant. "Emily really needs this to be private right now. She is scared and overwhelmed, and she only wants family with her. Michael, I am family. I am your mother. I know, but this is about what Emily needs right now. Please, just go home. I will send you pictures as soon as the baby is born." I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I kept my voice steady. "Is this really what you want? Or is this what she wants?" Another pause. "Longer this time. It is what we both want," he finally said. And then he hung up. I sat there in that empty waiting room, my phone still pressed against my ear, listening to the silence where my son's voice had been. Around me, the hospital hummed with life. Somewhere on this floor, my daughter-in-law was in labor with my first grandchild, and I was being told I was not family enough to be there. I should have left. I should have driven home, crawled back into bed, and waited for that call telling me I had a grandson or granddaughter. That is what a reasonable person would have done. But something in Michael's voice, that coldness, that distance, it planted a seed of fear in my chest that I could not ignore. So I stayed. I moved to a chair in the corner, partially hidden behind a pillar, and I waited. I watched nurses come and go, their shoes squeaking on the linoleum floors. I watched tired fathers stumble toward the vending machines. I watched an elderly man shuffle past, visiting his wife in intensive care, and I waited for hours past. It's 4 hours of sitting in that uncomfortable chair, my back aching, my heart aching worse. I checked my phone obsessively. No messages, no calls, no updates. At 6:43 in the morning, I saw Michael. He walked past the waiting room, heading toward the elevators, his phone pressed to his ear. He did not see me. I stayed very still, watching. "Yes," he said into the phone. "Everything went perfectly. No complications at all." He paused, listening. "No, she does not know yet. I will handle it." Another pause. "I know what we agreed. I am not backing out now. It is too late anyway." He stepped into the elevator, and the doors closed. I sat there, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What did not I know? What had they agreed to? What was too late? I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the maternity ward desk. A different nurse was there now, younger, less experienced looking. "Excuse me," I said, putting on my warmest smile. "I am here to see Emily Harrison in room 312. I am the grandmother." The nurse checked her computer without any of the caution the previous nurse had shown. "Oh, congratulations. Let me just buzz you in." The security doors unlocked with a soft click. I walked through them, my heart racing, knowing I was crossing a line but unable to stop myself. Room 312 was halfway down the hall. The door was partially open. I could hear voices inside. Emily's voice, strained and tired, and another voice, a woman's voice I did not recognize. I moved closer, pressing myself against the wall beside the door. "You did beautifully," the unfamiliar woman was saying. "He is perfect, absolutely perfect. When do I get to hold him?" Emily asked, and there was something strange in her tone, something distant. "Soon," the woman said. "The nurses just need to finish the paperwork. It is all very routine, and Michael's mother." Emily's voice had changed when she said my name. There was something cold in it, something almost like satisfaction. "Taken care of," the woman replied. "She will not be a problem." I felt ice fled through my veins. "Are you sure?" Emily asked. "Because if she starts asking questions, she will not. Everything is in place. By the time anyone realizes what happened, it will be far too late." I stood frozen outside that door, my mind racing. What would be too late? What had happened? What was I not supposed to realize? The unfamiliar woman spoke again. "I need to go. Remember, if anyone asks, you have not seen me. I was never here, of course." I heard footsteps moving toward the door. I turned and walked quickly back toward the security doors, my heart hammering, trying to look casual. Behind me, I heard the door to room 312 open. I glanced back just long enough to see a woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed, wearing dark sunglasses even though we were inside a hospital at dawn. She walked in the opposite direction, toward a staff exit. I pushed through the security doors and returned to my hiding spot in the waiting room. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. Something was very, very wrong. I pulled out my phone and did something I had never done before. Opened the tracking app that Michael and I had set up years ago, back when he was a teenager and I worried about him driving. He had never taken me off his sharing list. I had never thought to use it, until now. The app showed his location. He was not in the hospital anymore. He was moving, driving toward the west side of town. Toward an area I knew well. An area I had not been to in almost 10 years. Toward the old Harrison estate. Emily's maiden name was Harrison. Her family had money. Old money. The kind of money that came with expectations and obligations and secrets. I had only met her parents once, briefly, at the wedding. They had been cold, distant, barely speaking to me or anyone else outside their tight circle of wealthy friends. Emily had told Michael they were estranged, that she wanted nothing to do with her family's money or influence, that she wanted to build a life with him based on love, not wealth. I had believed her. Michael had believed her. What if we had both been wrong? I stood up, made a decision that would change everything, and walked out of that hospital. I got in my car and followed the blue dot on my phone that represented my son. The drive took 20 minutes. The sun was rising now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt ominous, like the world was holding its breath before something terrible happened. The Harrison estate sat on 15 acres of perfectly manicured grounds, hidden behind tall iron gates and even taller hedges. The house itself was massive, a Georgian revival mansion that had been in the family for 4 generations. I parked down the road, partially hidden by trees, and watched the gates. 5 minutes later, Michael's car pulled up. The gates opened automatically. He drove through. I waited another minute and got out of my car and walked along the hedge line until I found what I was looking for. A section of fence that had been damaged in a storm years ago and never properly repaired. I had discovered it once when I had taken a wrong turn during a walk. I squeezed through, scratched my arms on branches, and found myself on the edge of the estate grounds. The house loomed ahead, its windows reflecting the rising sun. I could see Michael's car parked in the circular driveway. Next to it, a black sedan I did not recognize. I crept closer, staying low, using the ornamental hedges and garden statuary for cover. I reached the side of the house and pressed myself against the cold stone wall. Voices drifted from an open window above me. I recognized Michael's voice, and Emily's father, Thomas Harrison. I had only heard him speak once, but his voice was distinctive. Deep and commanding with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. "I need to know this is going to work," Michael said. His voice was tight with stress. "If anything goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong," Thomas interrupted. "We have been planning this for 2 years. Every detail is accounted for." "But my mother—" "Your mother is not a concern," Thomas said coldly. "She has no legal standing, no claim. By the time she understands what has happened, the adoption will be finalized, the trust will be transferred, and there will be nothing anyone can do about it." "Adoption? Trust?" I pressed closer to the wall, straining to hear every word. "And Emily?" Michael asked. "She is okay with all of this?" Thomas laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Emily is doing exactly what she has been raised to do, securing the family legacy. The Harrison name has been in danger of dying out. Her brother's death changed everything. We needed an heir, a male heir, specifically according to the trust documents her great-grandfather established." My mind reeled. Emily's brother had died 3 years ago in a car accident. I remembered Michael being devastated for her, remembered how withdrawn she had become. "But Michael, you said we had a son," I whispered to myself, trying to piece it together. "The baby Emily delivered this morning," Thomas continued, "will be legally yours and Emily's, but biologically is the child of a surrogate we contracted 2 years ago, using frozen sperm from Emily's brother, collected before his death." I clapped my hand over my mouth to keep from gasping out loud. "When Emily turns 30, which happens in 6 weeks, she becomes eligible to access the $50 million trust. But only if she has a male biological heir from the Harrison bloodline. Her brother's son qualifies. Your supposed son qualifies." "So we lied," Michael said quietly. "To everyone, to my mother, to the doctors." "2. You did what was necessary," Thomas interrupted. "Emily pretended to be pregnant for 9 months. We arranged for the surrogate to deliver at the exact same time at a private facility. He picked up the real baby an hour ago while Emily pretended to deliver at St. Catherine's. The hospital has been paid handsomely to adjust their records. Everything is perfect. And no one will ever know," Michael said, but his voice wavered. "Not if you keep your nerve," Thomas said. "Your mother is the only potential problem. She is too attentive, too involved. We need her to back off." I felt sick. I felt like the ground was tilting under my feet. "How?" Michael asked. "We are going to make her believe she is the problem," Thomas said. "That her overbearing behavior is putting stress on Emily. We will slowly isolate her, make her feel unwelcome, make her doubt herself. And if that does not work, we have other options." "What other options?" Thomas's voice dropped lower. I had to strain to hear. "If she becomes too much of a liability, she starts asking the wrong questions or digging into Emily's medical records, we can handle it more permanently." "What does that mean?" "It means," Thomas said coldly, "that $50 million is worth protecting. By any means necessary." Silence. "Michael, do you understand what I am saying?" Michael started, then stopped. "Need time to think." "You do not have time. You need to go back to that hospital and play the role of the proud new father. You need to send your mother a picture of the baby and tell her to stay away for a few more hours because Emily needs rest. You need to make sure she suspects nothing." "Okay," Michael whispered. "Okay, good. Now go." And Michael, "If your mother becomes a problem, you will not have a choice about what happens next. This family protects its own at any cost." I heard footsteps moving toward the front of the house. I turned and ran, crouching low, making my way back through the gardens toward the damaged fence. Behind me, I heard the front door open. I did not look back. I squeezed through the fence, scratching my arms worse than before, not caring about the pain. I ran to my car, got in, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. My son had lied to me, had been lying to me for 2 years, had participated in an elaborate fraud. And now, if I became too much of a problem, too much of a liability, they would handle me more permanently. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. I needed to call someone, the police, a lawyer, anyone. But then I stopped. If I called the police now, what proof did I have? Hearsay. An overheard conversation. They would deny everything. The hospital records would show Emily had given birth. I would look like a crazy, jealous mother-in-law, exactly the image Thomas wanted to create. No, I needed proof. Real proof. Something undeniable. I started the car and drove home, my mind racing. Over the next 3 days, Michael sent me pictures of the baby. A beautiful little boy with dark hair and blue eyes. They named him Thomas, after Emily's father. Of course they did. I sent back appropriate grandmother messages. How beautiful, how perfect. I cannot wait to meet him. But I did not go to the hospital. I told Michael I had caught a cold and did not want to risk getting the baby sick. He seemed relieved. During those 3 days, I became someone I had never been before. I became a detective, an investigator, a woman with nothing to lose. I started with Emily's pregnancy. I went through every photo she had posted on social media over the past 9 months. I downloaded them all. And then I did something I had learned from a true crime podcast I listened to. I checked the metadata, the hidden information embedded in digital photos that shows when and where they were taken. Emily had been very careful, but not careful enough. In her 3rd trimester photos, the ones where she posed showing off her pregnant belly, the metadata showed the photos had been taken on the same day. All of them. She had worn different outfits and changed the backgrounds, but they had all been photographed during a single afternoon. She had not been pregnant. She had been wearing a fake belly and taking months' worth of photos all at once to post gradually. But that was not enough. Not nearly enough. I needed medical proof. I remembered something from years ago. Michael had put me as an emergency contact on his insurance information. I still had his insurance card from when he lived at home. I still knew his social security number, his birthday, his mother's maiden name. All the information I needed to access his insurance portal online. I created an account, logged in, and looked at his recent claims. There were no claims for Emily's pregnancy. None. No prenatal visits. No ultrasounds. No hospital delivery. Nothing. I took screenshots of everything, but I needed more. I needed to know about the surrogate, about the real baby. I thought about what I had overheard. Private facility. A surrogate they had contracted 2 years ago. Emily's brother's frozen sperm. I started searching. There were 3 private fertility clinics in our city. I called all of them, pretending to be a journalist writing a story about surrogacy. 2 of them refused to speak with me. But the 3rd, Clearwater Reproductive Services, was more than happy to talk about their surrogacy program. They were proud of it. I made an appointment for a consultation using a fake name. The clinic was beautiful, expensive, discreet, exactly the kind of place the Harrisons would use. The consultant who met with me was a kind woman in her 40s named Sharon. She walked me through their process, their success rates, their legal protections, and then she showed me their photo gallery. Families who had successfully used their services. Happy parents with their babies. And there, in the middle of the gallery, was a photo from 2 years ago. A groundbreaking ceremony for the clinic's expansion. Standing in the group of donors and board members was Thomas Harrison. Clearwater Reproductive Services, CRS. I thanked Sharon and left, my heart pounding. I spent the next 2 days trying to figure out how to get proof from the clinic, but their security was too good. Their records too protected. I could not just walk in and demand to see their surrogate files, so I did something else, something desperate. I hired a private investigator. His name was Marcus Chen, and he came highly recommended by a friend who had used him during her divorce. He was expensive. Very expensive, but I did not care. I paid him $5,000 up front and told him everything. He listened without judgment, taking notes. "This is a tough case," he said when I finished, "but not impossible. Give me a week." 6 days later, he called me. "I found your surrogate," he said. "Her name is Jennifer Dawson, 28 years old. She was paid $200,000 to carry a child for an anonymous couple through Clearwater Reproductive Services. The contract was signed 2 years ago. The baby was born 3 days ago at a private birthing center owned by the clinic. And here is where it gets interesting. The day after the birth, Jennifer received another $100,000, deposited into her account from a shell corporation registered to Thomas Harrison. Can you prove all of this?" I asked. "I have bank records. I have contract copies. I have the birth records from the private facility. I have something else." Jennifer is willing to talk. She is scared. She thinks something wrong happened because the couple she was supposed to hand the baby to never showed up. Instead, a man she did not recognize took the baby and told her the plans had changed. She thinks the baby might have been sold or stolen. She has been too afraid to go to the police, but she is willing to talk to a lawyer. I felt something unlock in my chest. Hope. Terrible, dangerous hope. "Set up the meeting," I said. "I will bring a lawyer." But first, I needed to do one more thing. I needed to see my grandson, the real one, the one everyone thought was Michael and Emily's baby. The one who was actually Emily's nephew, conceived with her dead brother's sperm, carried by a surrogate, and passed off as their biological child. I needed to see him so I could save him from the people who had turned him into a $50 million fraud. I texted Michael. "I am feeling better. I would love to come meet Thomas. When is a good time?" His response took an hour. "Maybe next week. Emily is still recovering, and we are not ready for visitors yet. Michael, it has been a week. I am his grandmother. I just want an hour." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Fine. Tomorrow at 2. But just for an hour." Emily tires easily. I showed up at their house at exactly 2 o'clock. It was a modest home in a nice neighborhood, the kind of place young families lived. Nothing like the Harrison estate. Emily answered the door. She looked tired, but not like a woman who had given birth a week ago. She looked like a woman who had been under a lot of stress. "Hi, Margaret," she said, giving me a tight smile. "Come in." The house was quiet. Too quiet. No crying baby sounds. No signs of the chaos that comes with a newborn. "Where is the baby?" I asked. "Sleeping," she said quickly. "He just went down. Hopefully he will wake up while you are here so you can hold him." Michael appeared from the kitchen. He hugged me, but his body was tense. "Hi, Mom." "Thanks for being patient with us. It's been a crazy week." "I understand," I said, keeping my voice light and warm. "Where is the little prince? I have been dying to meet him." Michael and Emily exchanged a glance. "I will go check on him," Michael said. "He might be waking up." He disappeared down the hallway. Emily gestured toward the couch. "Please sit. Can I get you something to drink?" "I am fine, thank you." She sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap. There was something about her posture, something rehearsed, like an actress playing a part. "You look well," I said. "How are you feeling?" "Good. Tired, but good." "The delivery was easier than I expected." "That is wonderful." "What hospital unit were you on?" "I have a friend who works at St. Catherine's. I was thinking of sending flowers to thank the staff." Something flickered across Emily's face. Just for a second. "Oh, that is not necessary." They were all very professional. I would not want to single anyone out. Still, I insisted. "Which nurses helped you? I'm sure they would appreciate the recognition." "I not remember their names," she said, her voice tightening slightly. Everything was such a blur. Michael returned, carrying a bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. My heart started pounding as he walked toward me. "Here he is," Michael said softly. "Mom, meet Thomas." He placed the baby in my arms. I looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair, the small hands curled into fists. He was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And he was innocent. He had no idea he was at the center of a massive fraud. No idea his existence was a lie designed to unlock millions of dollars. "He is perfect," I whispered, and I meant it. "He looks like you did," I said to Michael, "when you were born." Michael smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Yeah, everyone says that, but I was studying the baby's features carefully. Now that I knew the truth, I could see it. He did not look like Michael, not really. He looked like the one photo I had seen of Emily's brother at their wedding. The same nose, the same chin." I held him for 20 minutes, memorizing every detail. Michael and Emily watched me like I was a bomb that might explode at any moment. Finally, I handed him back. "Thank you for letting me meet him," I said. "He is wonderful. You must be so proud." "We are," Emily said quickly. "Very proud." I stood up. "Should let you rest. I am sure you are exhausted." They walked me to the door with barely concealed relief. I hugged Michael. "Call me if you need anything," I said. "I'm here for you. Always, I know, Mom. Thanks." I drove home, my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. The next day, I met with a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. One of the best family law attorneys in the state, a woman named Patricia Vance, who had built her career taking on the wealthy and powerful. I told her everything. I showed her everything. The insurance records, the metadata on the photos, the private investigator's report, the bank statements showing payments to the surrogate. Patricia listened with a completely neutral expression until I finished. Then she leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. "This is one of the most elaborate frauds I have ever seen," she said, "and I have seen a lot. Can we stop them? Can we save that baby from these people?" She tapped her pen against her legal pad. "It is complicated. The baby is legally theirs according to all official records. But if we can prove fraud, if we can prove the birth certificate is false, if we can prove they used a surrogate and lied about it to access trust funds, then yes, we can build a case. But Margaret, I need you to understand what you are about to do. You're going after your son. You're going after his wife. You are going after one of the wealthiest families in this state. They will fight back. They will fight dirty. And they might win. I know," I said. "But that baby deserves the truth. Michael, my Michael, he deserves to be free from whatever hold these people have on him." Patricia nodded. "Then let us build an airtight case. I will need everything you have. Every piece of evidence. Every recording. Everything." Over the next 2 weeks, Patricia and her team worked around the clock. They subpoenaed medical records. They interviewed the surrogate, Jennifer Dawson, who confirmed everything. They traced the money from Thomas Harrison's shell corporations to the fertility clinic to Jennifer's account. They built a case that was undeniable. But before we could file, Michael called me. "Mom, can you come over?" He sounded wrong. His voice was shaking. "Please, I need to talk to you." I almost said no. I was afraid it was a trap, that Thomas had figured out what I was doing and was planning something terrible. But he was my son. No matter what he had done, he was still my son. I went. Michael answered the door alone. His eyes were red like he had been crying. "Where is Emily?" I asked. "At her parents' house? With the baby?" "Mom, He stopped, his voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake." He led me inside. We sat in his living room, and he told me everything. It started 2 years ago. Emily's brother had just died. Thomas was devastated. Not just because he had lost his son, but because the family trust required a male Harrison heir to access the money. Without one, the entire $50 million would go to charity after Thomas and his wife died. Thomas approached Emily with a plan. Use her brother's frozen sperm to create an heir through a surrogate. Get pregnant, or pretend to be pregnant, and present the baby as her own. No one would ever know. At first, Emily had said no. He knew things about her past, things she had done that could destroy her reputation and her freedom. Things Michael still did not know about. So Emily had agreed. But she needed a husband, a respectable husband who would not ask too many questions, someone who loved her enough to go along with anything. She had met Michael at a coffee shop. It was not an accident. She had been sent to find someone like him, someone kind, someone trusting, someone with a bit of distance from his own family, so there would not be too many questions. She had seduced him. She had made him fall in love with her. And then, after they were married, She had brought him into the plan. Michael had resisted at first, but Thomas had made him an offer. $1 million. A guaranteed position at Harrison Industries. A life of wealth and comfort. All he had to do was play along, pretend the baby was his, keep his mother at a distance. Never let anyone find out the truth. And Michael, young and naive and desperate to prove himself to his new wife and her powerful family, had agreed. But now, sitting in his living room with tears streaming down his face, he told me it had all gone wrong. I thought it would be easy, he said. I thought I could just pretend and everything would be fine. But Mom, I cannot do it. Every time I look at that baby, I see the lie. Every time Emily's father looks at me, I feel like I sold my soul. And you, the way you held Thomas and looked at him like he was the most precious thing in the world, it broke something in me. He looked up at me, his face twisted with anguish. What have I done, Mom? What have I become? I moved to sit beside him. I put my arm around him, the way I had when he was a little boy, and had scraped his knee, or had his heart broken by a girl who did not like him back. Oh, Michael, I whispered. Oh, my sweet boy. He collapsed against me, sobbing. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. So many times I almost told you. But I was scared. Thomas said, if anyone found out, I would go to jail. He said I would lose everything. He said he would make sure I never saw the baby again, never had a life again. I held him while he cried, my heart breaking, because despite everything he had done, despite the lies and the fraud and the betrayal, he was still my son. Still the little boy I had raised and loved and protected, and he was trapped. Michael, I said gently, I need to tell you something. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. What? I know about the surrogacy. I know about the trust. I know about all of it. His face went white. How? I told him everything. The overheard conversation at the hospital. The investigation. The evidence. The lawyer? We are going to fix this, I said. But you need to be brave. You need to tell the truth. You need to testify about what Thomas made you do. He started shaking his head. I cannot. You do not understand. Thomas will destroy me. He will. He stopped, his eyes going wide with fear. Mom, he said, if anyone ever found out, he would make sure you had an accident. Said it was easy to make someone's death look natural. He said he had done it before. It's flooded my veins. When did he say that? Last week, when I told him I wanted out, and I said I could not do this anymore. He said I had no choice. Said if I tried to back out, he would take care of you and make it look like a heart attack or a fall or his voice broke. Mom, you need to run. You need to disappear. These people are dangerous. I am not running, I said firmly, and neither are you. You're going to end this together. But, Michael started. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia. She answered on the second ring. We are ready, I said. File everything. Now, Patricia did not hesitate. Consider it done. I looked at Michael. It is time to choose, sweetheart. You can either stay trapped in Thomas Harrison's web, watching over your shoulder for the rest of your life, raising a child under a lie, or you can stand up and tell the truth. What about the baby? Michael asked. What happens to him? That will be for the courts to decide. But he deserves to know the truth about who he is, and you deserve to be free. Michael sat there for a long moment, and I watched him struggle with the weight of everything. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I will tell the truth. 3 hours later, police arrived at the Harrison estate with a warrant. Thomas Harrison was arrested for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted coercion. Emily was arrested for fraud and filing false documents. Michael was taken into custody as a material witness, but was given immunity in exchange for his testimony. The baby, little Thomas, was placed temporarily with Child Protective Services while the courts determined his legal status. The story exploded across local and then national news. Wealthy family's bizarre scheme to defraud $50 million trust. The headlines were everywhere. Patricia fought for me to get temporary custody of the baby while the case proceeded. It took 6 weeks, but eventually a judge agreed. The baby came to live with me. I held him in my arms in my quiet house. This little boy who had been at the center of so much deception and greed, and I promised him something. You are not a pawn, I whispered. You are not a $50 million prize. You are a child. You are loved. And I will make sure you grow up knowing the truth, knowing you are wanted for who you are, not for what you represent. The trial took 8 months. Thomas Harrison was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 6 years in prison. His wife, who had been complicit in the scheme, received 3 years. Emily was convicted and sentenced to 4 years, with the possibility of parole after 2. The trust money was frozen pending further legal battles about who it rightfully belonged to. Michael was not charged with any crime, but the weight of what he had done haunted him. He went to therapy. He worked to rebuild his life. And slowly, carefully, I let him back into mine, because he was my son. And sometimes love means holding someone accountable, while also holding them up when they fall. Jennifer Dawson, the surrogate, was given legal rights to visit the baby if she chose. She came once, held him, cried, and told me she was glad he was with someone who loved him. As for the baby, the courts eventually ruled that since his biological parents were deceased, his father and never named his mother. And since all parties who had claimed legal parenthood had done so fraudulently, he would need a new legal guardian. I petitioned for permanent custody. The judge granted it. I renamed him, not Thomas. That name carried too much weight, too much history. I named him James, after my own father. A good man. An honest man. James is 3 years old now. He is bright and curious and full of laughter. He does not know yet about the circumstances of his birth, about the fraud and the lies and the people who tried to use him as a key to unlock a fortune. When he is old enough to understand, I will tell him the truth. I will tell him that his beginning was complicated, but his life is his own, that he is not defined by the greed and desperation of others. And I will tell him about the night I refused to leave that hospital waiting room. The night I stayed when I was told I was not family. The night that changed everything. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing a person can do is pay attention, to trust their instincts, to refuse to accept that something is wrong just because everyone tells them everything is fine. Michael visits regularly now. He and James have a relationship, though it is complex. Michael is learning to be honest, to be brave, to be the man he always had the potential to become. As for me, I learned something I wish I had not needed to learn. That the people we trust the most can betray us in the most devastating ways. That family is not always defined by blood. That sometimes love means making the hardest choice, even when it tears your heart apart. But I also learned that I am stronger than I knew. That a grandmother's love can move mountains, expose fraud, and save a child from a life built on lies. And I learned that when someone tells you that you are not family, sometimes it is because they are afraid of what you might see if you get too close. So I stayed close. I looked closely, and I saw the truth. And that truth, as terrible as it was, set us all free. The last time I drove past the Harrison estate, the gates were closed and locked. The house sat empty, dark windows reflecting nothing but sky. The perfectly manicured grounds had started to grow wild. $50 million, locked away in legal battles that would probably take years to resolve, and none of it mattered. Because in my home, in my arms, was a little boy who laughed when I tickled him, who called me Grandma, who had no idea he was supposed to be worth a fortune. He was priceless. And he was finally, truly safe. That is the end of my story. The story of how my son told me to leave, told me I was not family, and how I refused to accept that lie. Some people might say I destroyed my son's life. I tore apart his marriage and sent people to prison and ruined everything. But those people would be wrong, because I did not destroy anything. I uncovered what was already broken. I exposed what was already rotten. And I saved a child from a life built on fraud. My son told me to leave, said his wife only wanted family at the birth. But I stayed, because I was family, because I am family, because sometimes the only way to save the people you love is to refuse to look away from the truth, no matter how much it hurts. I wish I had never found out why Emily wanted me gone that night. I wish Michael had never made the choices he made. I wish that innocent baby had been born into a family built on love instead of greed. But wishing changes nothing. Action changes everything. And that night, when I stayed in that hospital waiting room instead of going home like I was told, when I crept through those estate grounds and listened at that window, when I hired that investigator and built that case, I took action. Not because I wanted to destroy anyone, but because I loved my son too much to let him destroy himself. And I loved my grandson too much to let him be a pawn in someone else's game. They told me I was not family. They were wrong. Family is not who you are convenient for. Family is who shows up when everything falls apart. Family is who tells the truth even when the truth is devastating. Family is who stays. I stayed. I wish I'd never found out why, but I'm glad I did. Because that little boy, James, he is sleeping in the next room right now. Safe, loved, free, and that makes everything worth it. Every terrible truth, every heartbreak, every sacrifice, all of it worth it. For him.